Good morning from Artistic Artifacts. This is Chris and
Catherine.
Catherine. We're here to talk about the big books, the Bernina Big Books. But before we get started, I thought I'd give you a few announcements as usual. Um, Judy has returned safely from Indonesia, and we hope that next week our Facebook Live will be her telling us a little bit about her trip, sharing some of the experiences that she was really good about sharing pictures online. So we've seen lots of the experience that she had. And she'll also talk about upcoming trips that she has. She says one to Italy in September. She has another one to India in the end of November, early December, and then another one to India, a different part of India in 2025. You can find out information on those. A couple of them are pretty close to being full. So if you're interested, she intrigued you about travel with Judy Gula. I would advise you to go and check those out and sign up ASAP. I can't believe that it's the end of May. We've got a lot of classes coming up over the summertime. We had a visit on Thursday from the people from the Mid Atlantic Shop Hop, and they gave us all our material and what we need to do and all of that to get ready. And
There's so many shops included.
There's 90 plus shops.
Yeah.
And the magazine tells you, as somebody asks, the magazine tells you what the rules are, what you need to do. There are prizes available if you go to one store or 90 stores. So lots of fun activities, and we'll be planning some stuff in the shop during that time as well. Yeah. And again, save the date for Seventh After. Excuse me. It's the last weekend in September. We'll have his new fabric, which comes out at the end of August, and 2 classes. I know he's been busy traveling, and we're just waiting for him to finalize the class content. And as soon as we get that information, we'll get it up. Those usually sell out, so save the dates and watch the newsletter. So I think that's enough announcements. We're going to talk today about the Big Book of Feet. Catherine is our Bernina educator, and she has different things that she does, and I have different things that I do. So we'll talk about some of our favorite books and why we like them and the advantages of those books.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Chris. The first book we want to talk about is this Big Book of Feet. And this is just a splendid, splendid reference book. When I first got this book, I wasn't sure that I would use it very often, but it's amazing what a great reference book this is and how many questions it answers right off the bat. For instance, when you open it, the very first thing it talks about is what's the difference between a foot number that has no letter, a foot number that has a C, and a foot number that has a D. And so this is very clear, and you can figure out and have this reference for what is best for your machine.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions are they legacy feet, or are they, what's the D mean? Is it dual feet?
Right. And will they fit? Are they interchangeable on machines and things like that? So that's all covered right here. And I think it's great. This book lists the feet in numerical order. And I wanted to just go into, the very first one, zigzag foot 0. You know, you may not be familiar with this, but for each foot, it shows you the foot, it shows you the dimensions and what it's about. The zigzag foot, you can add the finger guard, and then it tells you all these techniques that you can do with that foot. So it's a great reference.
So it's not just a catalog of feet. It's a reference for how to use the feet.
Right, right. And then on the following pages, if you look over here, there are actual pictures of those kinds of uses and a short description about how to do it. So it's a reference for the feet and the numbers and about the feet, but it's also a reference for if you know you want to do a certain kind of stitching, how to do that with the specific foot. So it's just a great, great reference, I think. I wanted to tell you too about some special feet that I get a lot of questions on. One that I get a lot of questions on in classes is, what's the difference between a 37, a 57, and a 97 foot? Because they're all patchwork feet, or some people call them quarter-inch feet. And this puts them all together and gives you a description of what each one is. And it also shows you the dimensions. And so you can kind of choose which one you want. For instance, the 57 has a little guide here. The 97 has a guide that you add and screw onto your machine for a variety of seam allowances. It also points out that not only is the outside of the toe on the 97 the quarter-inch foot, the inside of the toe is an 1/8 inch. So it's a dual guide there. So this gives you a good reference for how to choose your feet. Another question I get a lot about is with this Bernina stitch regulator. This is a great tool that Bernina has. It's for free motion stitching. It makes sure that no matter how fast or slow you're moving the fabric under the needle, your stitches are going to be the same length. So we get a lot of questions about that. And I wanted to show you this specific one because in your box with your Bernina stitch regulator, you get several different feet.
You get 3 different
little attachments for what you're doing. It's not very intuitive unless you've seen it done on how to attach the BSR or how to change the feet and also what BSR mode you want. So this book and this explanation of the BSR allows you to understand and use the full capabilities of what this foot can do for you. And then another foot that I get a lot of questions about is the foot number 50, the walking foot. I love this foot, and many quilters have this foot. And again, it has a chart at the bottom that shows you the different techniques that you can do. It shows you the parts that you get with the foot. And then it goes into an explanation of when you might want to change the sole plate of the foot for specific uses.
And does it show you how to change the sole?
Yes,
plate?
right here. It says changing soles. So
it's that little tiny screw that you have to be very careful that you don't get the screw fall on your carpet.
Right. So this allows you to do this anytime in your own home without having to come to a class or without having to call the shop. You could be in your pajamas and it's 3 a.m. and you can't sleep and you want to sew. So this is a great reference to do that. There's one other thing I wanted to point out at the back of the book. There's a whole section on additional accessories, and it includes needles. So look at this great chart here that lists all the different kinds of needles and when you would use them. So there's also information about threads, about spool holders, about things you can put on your machine like magnifying glasses, etc. So this is just a really good reference.
So this one though, it's showing the Bernina needles, but the type of needle and the numbers equate to the Schmetz needles that we sell.
Yes, yes, okay. That's pretty universal. Yeah. The numbering and the sizing. So get yourself a cup of tea, sit down in a chair on a rainy evening or a rainy day like today, and just flip through here, and you'll be amazed at the things that you'll learn with this big book of feet. So I wanted to talk to Chris because she's going to talk about the big book of machine quilting, and you found that also has information on feet.
Oh my goodness. I don't think I'd ever opened this book before. It's the book of machine quilting, because I thought it was much more on the computerized quilting or the free motion quilting.
Right.
And this is going to go in my library. It is an absolute resource for anyone who's primary sewing, or not just primary sewing, but if you're really interested in quilting. It talks about, it has the functions outlined. So if you took your mastery class 3, 4, 5 years ago, like I did, it actually tells you and shows you the functions on your machine that are very useful when you are piecing a quilt in quilting a quilt. So it talks about the different functions.
Oh, that's great, because the mastery classes give you so much information. It's a little hard to retain everything.
And the other thing that I realize is, I mean, I have a whole bunch of quilt books that are usually a pattern or a style of quilting, and there might be some basics in the front of those books, but this gave far beyond the basics.
Oh, great.
So it really was helpful. It does have presser feet for quilt making. So it has the patchwork feet, but it also goes into the leather roller, the free motion, the embroidery, applique. So all different functions that you might do as a quilter are covered in their feet. But then there's quilting essentials. This is really how to cut, what notions you need, how to press, how do you read a pattern, how do you start piecing. So it is a very good block design, block layout. So there's a lot of information for someone who hasn't quilted before, or maybe quilted, 20 years ago. And we get people coming in and saying, I haven't quilted since my child was born and I made a baby quilt. Well, now I want to make a baby quilt for my grandchild. This is a good reminder of all of those. And then it talks about machine quilting and different ways you can do it, whether you're using your walking foot, quilting with rulers, machine embroidery quilting, if you have that style of module. And then it has some, some decorative stitches. So there's a whole section on stitching with or quilting with decorative stitches, which that's what this shows you how to embellish, but this one actually how you can use those decorative stitches for quilting, which I think Dudley does very effectively. She uses zigzag stitch for her quilting using her walking foot. Yes.
Yeah.
And there's even some information on long arm if you get to the point where you think your domestic machine. We were actually having a conversation earlier about the quilt that's on the quilt table is the size that we kind of like to do on our domestic machine. It's a lap quilt. I can handle it on my domestic machine in the space that I have. But if I get any larger, it goes to either quilt by check or it goes over to the long arm. My last couple quilts were Carl and Andy and Martha quilted them for me. So, but it talks about how to do that. And for me, this would be helpful because when I give them a quilt to quilt, they're usually saying, well, what pattern do you want? How dense do you want it? What design do you want? And so this gives me an understanding of what they're doing when I ask the quilter to quilt for me.
Right. And I have a Q20 at home, but it took me months of thinking about it, about should I get this or should I just, continue quilting on my domestic machine. And this book and the big book of computerized quilting can help you decide. Would I like to expand to these other capabilities?
Well, I was talking to Carrie this morning, who's making a table runner, and she said, well, I don't know how to quilt it. I don't feel comfortable. And it's like, you can do straight line quilting with your walking foot. And a table runner is a perfect way to practice because it's not too big and you haven't invested lots of dollars and lots of time piecing a large quilt, but it's a good place to practice.
Right. So these books would help you step by step.
Yeah. And then there were a couple other things. There's designing quilts. I didn't know this. I'm going to investigate that. It actually says that the software has a quilt designer inside of it. So we're going to do some investigation because I wouldn't mind designing some quilts. I've actually got an idea in my mind. And if the computer can help me do that, that would be awesome. Because I usually make the quilt and then I have to go back and figure out, okay, how did I do that? Right. And I'm measuring the pieces and whatever. And then one last feature that it has binding
That's great.
binding techniques and the feet to do. Oh, I think the other feature I'm thinking of is in this book.
Okay.
So, but
okay.
I think it's worthwhile. I'll probably walk home with this one after I pay for it today. But it's going in my library.
Me too. Right. So this is the book that I use the most, probably just because I don't own all the books yet. But anyway, I love this book. It's the Big Book of Embroidery.
Well, then you do a lot of embroidery.
I do. Yeah. And we're running a series of classes this year about embroidery basics. And what we're doing is we're stepping through the techniques that are in this book. This book talks to you about basics, about setting up the embroidery, but it tells you a lot of other things. It tells you how to hoop and what hoops to use. It talks to you about editing and making changes.
Does it have a thing about stabilizers?
It does. Okay. It has a wonderful chart of stabilizers and tells you different kinds and
when to use which one.
Yes, what fabrics and what you're going to do with your design. It talks to you about applique. We've done applique. It talks to you about in the hoop, about design tiles, putting them together. So this is just a wonderful, wonderful resource. And what I like about it is that I keep this on the shelves right next to my machine. And granted, a lot of this is out on YouTube. And there are very good Bernina YouTube videos out there. But I don't have to go search. I don't have to get up, for one thing, and go to the TV or the computer and search on YouTube. I can just grab this book and I've got a hard copy ready reference for what I want to do. So as an example, I wanted to show you today we're talking about monogramming and lettering. So there's a section in here called To the Letter. Again, it talks to you about what's in your machine, which you would have learned in a master class, but maybe, didn't.
I don't remember how to go in and pick my name out.
Right. It's too much information all at once, perhaps, without a refresher. So it talks about that. It talks to you about monogramming and the different kinds of monogramming. And then it has this very handy table about monogram placement. And each section has these tables in here that are just so handy.
And that's true. That's true with all the books.
Yeah. It's probably available online, but I didn't have to search for it. It was right here in my book.
Well, and I think the other one that I saw in both of the books that I'm reviewing was that also had some tables in them, and it varies based on the book, is which of these features is available on which machine.
Right.
So if you've got a 535, you're not going to get all the features mentioned in any of these books. But if you have a 770 plus,
right,
all of them are there.
Yeah, like for instance, on this one in the front, it talks about which hoops fit on which machines. So that, and it has the dimensions. So if you're out looking to buy an embroidery design, and it gives you the dimensions, you can instantly tell, is this going to fit on my machine in the hoops that I have or not?
But it's also good if you are at the point where you're ready to upgrade your machine,
right,
to say, what are the things that are missing on the current machine that I have that I would, features that I would like to have.
Right.
And then it gives you an educated starting point to say, okay, I can't start at a 590 because I have a 570. It's not really going to give me any more. It might give me a little bit, but I want to go to the 790, or I might wait for magic to happen for the 990, which will be revealed at Bernina University. And we don't know much about the machine, but it's a wow. It is magic.
Yeah.
I just want to know if I can go and have my coffee downstairs and let the machine do all the work for me. And I'll buy it. But I don't think it's there yet, but it sounds like it's pretty close to it.
Right. So you wanted to talk about stitches?
Well, and I'm standing here thinking, you probably should have talked about this one, because you're also doing, in addition to the embroidery classes, you're doing decorative stitches.
Right. How to use the full capabilities of your machine.
But this really is a great reference on your tensions, the best stitch positions, how to make sure you've got your tensions. It gives you what is your your library of stitches, so you can pick what you need. And when I first thought of decorative stitches, it's kind of like how I first thought of machine embroidery. It was like, oh, those cutesy little ducks and whatever. I don't have kids. I'm not doing cutesy ducks. So, but there are so much more. And again, there was one that I really loved in here. There's a whole section on
Sashiko.
Sashiko.
Yes.
What foot to use, how to do it, what stitch length,
yes,
what tension. And it's like, oh, this is a whole new avenue for me, because I hand stitch Sashiko. So I might be interested in pursuing this book a little bit more. It talks about needles. It talks about your threads. This is more Sashiko and how to do it. It actually has how to make some art with decorative stitches. This one's cute with the buttons, but it tells you exactly which stitches, what width to use, how to do circles. I think these are gorgeous.
It is, for a medallion in the center of a block or a
and then how to actually quilt with decorative stitches. So this isn't just applying decorative stitches to the fabric, but this is actually using it as your quilt design.
Right. And we're learning in that machine exploration something about like this flower on the other side of the page. So how you can do that.
So how to do some machine applique, and then machine design and decorative stitches, and how to use the circular features. Creating a stitch book. And I just did a hand stitching book that started 10 years ago, and I've actually finished it. But this is actually a great way to document what your stitches look like with different widths, different lengths, different threads.
Right.
And then as a reference to say, here's the favorite ones that I have, that you're not going through the library saying, I wonder which one I would like, or how do I do this? And it's a good exercise to learn the machine.
Yeah.
And then again, this one actually includes overlocker as a decorative stitching.
Great.
And so we know that there's a lot of people doing using their overlocker. I think Andy's, I see his quilts off the machine, off the quilting machine.
Yes.
So he just made an entire quilt using the L890 as the piecing. And then he's quilted it on the Q-matic. So he didn't use it as the overlocker for his quilting, but we have done that. Yes.
But he also told me how he's going to use the L890 to put the binding on.
Ooh.
Yeah, pretty nice. Pretty quick.
He's very excited.
He is. If he could stay around, I think he'd be our Bernina ambassador. Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. One last thing I wanted to talk about is that the 34 foot is on sale this month. And this is one of my two favorite feet. It's very similar to your number 1 foot that you get with your machine, your 1C or your 1D. This 34 foot comes in no letter, a 34C and a 34D. And what it is very similar, like I said, to the number 1 foot, except it's see-through. And so you get a lot of gripping of your fabric because it's a wider foot. Oh. But you can see what you're doing. And so I love this foot. For anything that doesn't need a 1/4 inch seam, this is the foot that I'm now using.
Guess I'm going home with that today too.
It's my new favorite. I don't even bother to put it in my Bernina box of accessories.
Well, I have my one in my 97 and my 57D all sitting on the side of
just
the
in
machine.
A little tray next. And that's where this one lives because I use it so often. So this is 25% off.
And all the books, we only touched on books today. They are 25% off, as is luggage. There's tiered savings on machine. There's 2.9% financing through the 21st. And it seems to me, there's a special on the 435, a really great price on the 435. So lots of options. Don't know whether anybody asked Kyle, but Someone asked yesterday about this quilt. This is a Find the Birds modern art quilt kit that we have. It's a 3-yard pattern from Fabric Cafe. It's gold bold pattern. And I use the Find the Birds fabric and one of our blenders, and the kit has all the fabrics for the top. And then it was quilted on the Cumatic. And then I believe, I used complementary fabric on the background. I was going to say I used a wide back. I've gotten to where I'm using wide back fabrics on, and I just finished 2 quilts using one piece of wide back. So
that's
yes,
nice. Yeah.
Any questions, Kyle?
No, but Kathy Lincoln's back.
Oh wow! We have to schedule her to talk about her world cruise.
That'd be wonderful.
Hi, Kathy. It's nice to have you back, grounded in the States. Anything else?
No, just lots of hellos and good mornings from all over the country.
All right, and then again next week we're hoping the Facebook Live. We'll see how Judy adjusts to the time change, but we're hoping that she'll be here next week to talk about her travels. So thanks for joining us this morning. Go sew.
Thank you. Have fun.